Until a year or 2 years ago, I think that my clients were collecting a lot of data and wasn't really aware of how to use it. So I think it started off with collecting a lot of data. What I've seen the last 1 or 2 years is actually they start to use the data.
Hi everyone. For today's episode of Retention Zone, the video podcast focused on streaming monetization, I have the pleasure to have with me an expert in the field, Magnus Svensson from Eyevinn Technology. Hi Magnus, where are you dialing in? What do we say? Where are you connected from?
I'm connecting from Stockholm, Sweden this week. I'm actually home in my hometown for this week, and then I'm back on the road again.
Nice place, Stockholm. I spent a bit of time through the years there for different sport competition.
We
I have good memories.
Finally got some spring now, so we are 20 degrees and sun outside. So.
Oh wow! So it's even better than Torino. Okay, so tell me about your long career in media and tech, and let's talk about then where we are with streaming today.
Absolutely. Oh, I started my video career and I started my technical career at Ericsson. It must be somewhere beginning of the 90s. Worked with Ericsson for 20 years. Was part of the building the first Ericsson IPTV. It was actually SIP-based IPTV solution we started to build around beginning of 2000. And I continued with Ericsson until 8 years ago, when I stopped Ericsson and joined Eyevinn Technology. Work at Eyevinn Technology as a independent media consultant, helping the video industry with technical, strategical advice around how to build technical platforms, how to monetize video, and basically how to navigate in the streaming landscape. Eyevinn Technology is a smaller consultancy company based in Stockholm. We're 25 employees, all experts in video streaming. So, and we're independent, working in North America and Europe. So we have a pretty wide picture of the media industry and the technology side of the streaming part.
And so for sure you have observed the evolution of streaming media. If you have to tell the story to someone that just arrived on planet Earth, how would you describe the last, 20, 15, 10 years?
I think I actually summarized it just a couple of days ago for a client. And the funny thing is that I think we're going in circles. And if you look back at the industry 10, 15 years ago, it was a quite healthy industry. We had a mix of subscription funding, advertised funding, streaming channels, and all these things. Then 10, 15 years ago, Netflix entered the scene and came in and disrupted the market with video on demand, everything you can eat for a subscription fee. Everybody jumped on the same train and should do the same thing as Netflix. It's still only Netflix that really makes money on that business model, and not even Disney or not even Netflix has stayed sustainable on only subscriptions. So we started to get advertising back into the industry again. With advertising, we get the need for live content and sports because that drives viewership instead of subscribers. And we're back to a mix of subscription and advertised funded parts with live video on demand, docuseries, and sort of the traditional TV industry back again. So it's the circle is back where we started.
But is it fair to say that the money is less? Because there is a but, right? Otherwise it would be okay.
The money is not less, I would say. I think the competition has been increased by so many other things like user-generated content that we didn't have before. The ease of making video productions has made the flora of options so much higher than we've seen before. When I grew up, we had one channel, and then the addition of the second channel.
Me too.
And I actually had one of the coolest feature in TV history is actually in Sweden. We had a little triangle up in the right corner that blinked when something started on the other channel.
Wow, you were advanced already then.
Exactly. So that feature will be pretty much blinking every time now if something else was started somewhere else. So.
Absolutely. So, but one of the things that we have, I mean, it's obvious, and one of the solutions is what you said before, going back also to have ad-funded, video-based streaming media services. The fact that churn became a word that possibly most of us didn't know before, because even in the era of pay TV, churn was not really a thing.
No.
Good luck leaving the whatever. I don't have one, luckily enough, for many years now, but the set-top box and giving it back. So how do you see, the arrival, the focus that started to be prominent on churn, and the reason for it, and if you want, which solution you think are the one working at the moment?
First of all, I think churn is definitely a new term that came in just a few years ago when we started to get, like you said, I think I still have a set-top box somewhere in my home. I haven't used it for a while, but I don't know how to get rid of it. So, but churn is definitely there to stay, and I'm not honestly think it might not be as a big problem as you could think, as long as you can handle it, as long as you're aware of the churn issue and you can also retain the subscribers back. And that's why we see, I think, the flora of live content, a mix of live and VOD, sports, and things that drive viewership. Because I think even Netflix now will not report on subscription numbers anymore in their quarterly earnings, which is quite obvious because they don't see the growth there as high as they seen before, and it's probably not as important for Netflix either. So I don't think it's just a matter of hiding something. It's more that viewership hours is more important than number of subscriptions. And I think that might be an equally important factor than churn to actually increase the viewership, because with ads coming in, viewership is equally important as subscriber number. But I think it comes down, and it's not that far away from the truth that content is king. Content is very important. And even if churn might not be as a big problem as we have seen before with the big telcos and TV and broadband subscriptions and these type of things, it's still an important factor to keep in mind and be aware of and keep track of.
I think in theory, with all the data that, again, in theory, because you need to instrument everything properly, with all the data and understanding of what your user, consumer, depending where in the funnel they are, just free trial, ad base, premium, super premium, with all the data that you have there, in theory, the strategies and the understanding of what's going on, what works, what doesn't, what should, there is a lot more. I can imagine a lot more people are spending time on this kind of data. What is your experience with the clients you work with?
I think until a year or 2 years ago, I think my clients were collecting a lot of data and wasn't really aware of how to use it. So I think it started off with collecting a lot of data. What I've seen the last 1 or 2 years is actually they start to use the data. And they start to make conclusions out of the data and see patterns in, and like you said, what content works, what doesn't work, when does people tune into their service, when do they leave. And now the last addition that I've seen more and more being interesting is actually the use of AI and machine learning to draw conclusions automatically out of the data you collect, which becomes more and more important to actually not fight churn, but at least be aware of churn and what drives the viewership back.
And my next question was exactly about AI, the role of AI in this.
Yeah.
And do you think people are just saying it, or they really start to using it, and you have seen results already? It may be early, but I understand.
No, I think actually we both met at NAB in Las Vegas just a couple of weeks ago, and that's where the first trade show and conference that I actually saw that AI was not a buzzword, it was actually used. I didn't see AI as the big buzzword. I saw usage of AI and machine learning in a lot of products. Everything from generating trailers, generating snapshots, highlight clipping, social media publishing, but also use of data, which I was found very interesting to see that you can actually with all the data you're collecting during your entire days and weeks and month of driving your service, you can actually use AI and machine learning to draw conclusions out of patterns, user behavior, viewership behavior, churn figures, and actually draw conclusions out of that, which I found very interesting, that it's not AI per se, it's actually usage of the technology.
I have to say, I wrote about it, and it's exactly one of my points. I spend some time, not a lot, but most of the time when I was talking about AI, it was some real things happening in production, people working on it. So it's definitely less a buzzword, and people are finally using and trying to get some sense of how it could be useful for productivity or new products, new type of contents, etc. So I totally agree on that. On the other end, as we have this more hybrid solution, when you have all these people in consumer in different funnels, etc., I think the interpretation of the data, so it's a bit more complex, because on one end you have a classical subscription retention platform, which is already sophisticated. Now you add all the ad part, which means some people are in, as you say, what you call viewership, watching ads, somehow even in microfraction, generating some revenue, also staying inside. So I think both in terms of tools and strategy, this part is a bit more complex if you want to do it well, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think one interesting thing is actually that I'm working with many of my clients is to actually make the advertising a bit more interesting and more interactive with clickable ads. It could be QR codes. It could be something that makes you want to see the advertising and not just go and fetch more coffee and go to the toilet or something like that. It's actually worth something for you. And I'm not 100% convinced that it necessarily need to be personalized, but I think content aware, because I think you can draw quite some conclusions if you're watching a soccer game that you're interested in soccer. I don't think you need to be personalized to draw those conclusions. I think it's a matter of being content aware, making the advertising interesting for you, either with the QR code, clickable link, object recognition, so you can actually do a purchase based on what you see or get more information based on the ads you see. Making the content and both content and advertising worth watching.
Yeah, makes sense, I think. And do you think, where do we go from here? Because there's been few things that are macro, if you want, happening in the market. One, let's call it big tech. So the big people are coming in. So Apple, in some way, if you Amazon, definitely. So a lot of announcement recently. On the other end, the other big parts, the big media is trying to aggregate or rebundle everything. What do you think is happening next in that more macro level of the ecosystem?
In the macro level of ecosystem, I see a definite shift now with the big streaming providers, Amazon, Netflix, and Disney, and these guys. They are suddenly more interested to be part of a bundle. They are more interested to be part of a package, like call it channel package before. Now it's a streaming package, because suddenly when they're ad funded, viewership again is more important. So being part of a bundle makes sense for them. I see that Netflix, in the countries where they've started with advertising, they're more happily involved in a telco bundle or a package in some form. So again, the loop is closed now, and suddenly that's interesting to be part of a package again. And we see a macro trend going into bundles. And we see that in sports, we see that in VOD.
And I think one last thing, what is the most innovative things that capture your attention in the last 6 months, if you want, in this area? Technology or a streaming service that innovated something on the user experience? Or
what I usually say now is that we have seen a lot of technology advancements in the distribution chain. Everything from content coming into the platforms, we see that they are distributed more efficiently and all these things. Where I see most of the innovation coming now is actually on the production side. How to make the production simpler, remote workflows, actually combining the production chain with the distribution chain, because it's up till now and still is in a large extent very two silos. You do production, you spend a lot of time spending and doing production, store it in a high mezzanine format somewhere, and in the end it's distributed in 10 megabits to the viewers. So I definitely see most of the innovation now and moving forward the coming years will be on the production side, and actually combining the production workflows with the distribution workflows.
And I was thinking, as you were saying that, not many, again, if not the hybrid model, not many innovation in terms of monetization. Like we have talked, so there is always TVOD, transaction VOD there. Sometimes someone uses it. Micropayments was something that, in theory, we were all waiting to happen. I don't know. Maybe you have a different view, but at the moment,
I don't see that happening either, because even if it's a micropayment, it's still a decision that you have to make.
Yeah.
And as soon as you make a decision, you can always hesitate and don't do it. So I see a lot of advancement more on this granular level when it comes to monetization. I see a trend from client-side advertising to service-side advertising, and now we're getting into server-guided ad insertion. So and I saw quite a big buzz around that at NAB also now when it comes to clickable ads, QR codes, and these type of things, and connecting that data with the viewing data.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely. Okay, so let's. I hope we meet when Sports Pro Madrid, IBC before maybe.
Absolutely, really looking forward to all these things coming up now.